Recording in progress.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Before we begin our today's class, okay, so last week, we talked about economic growth. We said that every country would like to aim for economic growth. And how do we measure economic growth? We refer to a metric called GDP, Gross Domestic Product. And we learned about different terms of GDP. We learned that there is nominal GDP, real GDP, and we say that real GDP is better because it is adjusted for inflation, right? So we have been talking about GDP for the past lesson. Okay, now how do we calculate the actual value of the GDP of the country then? Okay, so what are the methods available for us to derive the actual value of the GDP itself? There are different methods for us to compute the value of GDP. Okay, so the first thing I want you to know is what are the ways for us to calculate the value of GDP. Before that, let's do a quick intro with the use of this with a reference to this diagram here first. Okay, so when we talk about economic growth, we say that we want to have an increase in the real GDP of the country. And now we want to talk about what are the ways for us to measure the GDP. Okay, so first of all, you can see that there is a baker over here. Okay, so this baker, he produces bread. Okay, so he produces bread. So bread here is his output. Okay, oh, now let me see if I share screen or not. Yeah, okay. So the baker is producing bread. So let's say, for example, this lady over here, she is interested to buy the bread from this baker. So this baker will sell the output to the lady, and the lady will pay the cash, the expenditure to this baker. Okay, so you see there is output here, which is the bread, and this lady pays the money to the baker. Okay, so this baker will have the income, right? So the expenditure of this lady will be the income for this baker. Okay, now he has money already. Okay, he has money already. So now let's say, for example, he would like to buy the meat. Okay, he would like to buy the meat from this person. So how? So this guy will sell the output, the meat, to the baker, and this baker will use the money to pay for the meat. So now this guy will get the income. Okay, he has the income already because he sold off the meat and got the money. All right, so therefore he got the income. Now let's say this guy over here would like to buy candle. He would like to buy candle from this lady. Okay, so what happened here is, okay, this lady will sell the candle, the output, to this guy over here, and this guy will use money to pay for the candle. So therefore, this lady here will have the income. Okay, so now what can you see over here? Three things. Okay, three things here which you can see is basically, you can see that there is always output, expenditure, and income. These three components here should be equivalent to each other. Okay, so we can say that, we can say national output, should always be equivalent to the national expenditure. Okay, and it should always be equivalent to the national income. How do I have these things here? Because we can see that these three components here are equivalent to each other in this scenario, right? You can see the output is always equivalent to the expenditure, equivalent to the income from this diagram over here. And that leads us to the first thing over here, which is the three methods for us to measure GDP. We have output approach, expenditure approach, and income approach. That's how it begins. Okay, so now let's have a look into our notes. Okay, so let's have a look into our notes. Before we look into the question, I want to see the notes here first. You scroll down and you see the notes. So in the previous lesson, we had already defined what is GDP. We say GDP refers to the market value of all final goods and services in the country in a year. Okay, now we had said that there are three ways for us to measure the value of GDP, to get the value of GDP. First one is expenditure approach, income approach, and output approach. Okay, expenditure approach means what? We add up all the total spending in the economy. Okay, I want you to remember one thing. Okay, you write this down. Expenditure approach, I want you to remember it as we add up all the total spending in the economy. Means we add up all the aggregate demand in the economy. AD means aggregate demand. Okay, so we add up all the spending in the economy. So aggregate demand consists of four components, which are consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. So remember first thing, expenditure approach is the combination of consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. You add it up, you get the answers already. Okay? Net exports, how do you get net exports? You use exports minus imports. Okay? Net exports means exports minus imports. Okay, Ken? Okay, now, the next one is income approach. Income approach means what? I add up all the factor incomes. Like what? Like the wages of employees, corporate profits, sole traders profits, net interest, rental, anything except transfer payment. I do not add on transfer payment. What? Why? Because transfer payments are like what? Transfer payments are like the financial assistance given by the government, okay, to help those in need. Like for example, unemployment benefits, social security benefits, pension benefits, and so on, retirement benefits. So all these are the money that's being given by the government through the people without any goods and services in return. Government give the money to these people who are in need, who are poor, who are unemployed, but got any goods and services in return or not? No, ma. So why do we record in GDP? No point. So transfer payments here, okay, you can remember as the payment by the government, okay, without goods and services in return. So we do not include that. Okay, so transfer payment means the payment by the government, like the financial assistance by the government, without any goods and services in return. So we do not include that. Okay. Now I want you to remember one formula. Okay, then it will be very easy for you, which is for income approach. I want you to remember. Okay, you use the compensation of employees. Compensation of employee means what? Like wages. The wages plus, okay, plus gross operating surplus, okay, plus net indirect taxes. You always use this formula if they ask you to calculate the income approach. Okay, I explained to you. So you remember this formula, three things, okay? You use compensation of employees plus gross operating surplus plus net indirect tax. Okay, so first of all, what is gross operating surplus? Gross operating surplus is basically about the profits of businesses, profits from incorporated business and unincorporated business. Like example, it would be like, for example, profits from the business, profits from the sole trader, profits from the partnerships, okay, profit from the business basically. And then when you have the net interest, okay, net interest, rental is also under here as well, okay. Rental income, interest income is also under gross operating surplus as well, okay. And then net indirect taxes is basically use indirect tax. Let me write here. Indirect tax minus subsidies. Okay, that's how we get the net indirect tax. Okay, indirect tax minus subsidies. Okay, so I want you to remember, so two things here just now, expenditure approach is this one, and then income approach is this one. Okay, the third one is output approach. Output approach means I only look into the value of the final goods and services, or I look into the value added parts of the output to avoid double counting. Now, what do you mean by that? Okay, so output approach, you have two ways. Either you look into the final value of outputs, or you look into the value added of output. Why? You must choose one only. Why? Because you want to avoid double counting. What do you mean by double counting? Let's explain with the use of an example. Okay. Now, I'm going to explain to you why we have to choose either one of it with an example, with a scenario. Okay. You try to understand it, because in midterm you might be asked to explain, you know, why we should just look into the value added part to avoid double counting when we are calculating the GDP using output approach. Okay, so let's do an example. Okay, so let me erase this one first. Okay, so let me just okay, let's do it here. Okay, value added or output approach. We talk about output approach. Okay, output approach. Now, let's say I look into an apple. So this is an apple. Okay, so the cost of apple is, let's say, $2. Okay, now let's say we use this apple to produce apple juice. Okay, we use this apple to produce apple juice. And this apple juice, the price, okay, the cost of this apple juice itself is $5. Okay, so what happened is, if let's say we do not look into the value of the final outputs, we go and add up all. Let's say I add up these $2 plus this $5. How much it equals to? It becomes $7, which is wrong. Why is that wrong? Because there is double counting here. Why is that double counting? Because the cost of apple has been calculated twice. Because in this $5 over here, the cost of apple is $2, and the value added is $3 when they convert into apple juice. So do you realize one thing over here? These $2 over here is being calculated twice. So this is double counting already. So this is wrong. Okay, so what should we do then? Okay, we should just take the value of final outputs. This is the value of final outputs. Okay, we should take this value of the final outputs as one of the method, or we look into the value added part. Like how? For example, we say that the apple is $2. Yes, we take this $2. And then when it is being converted into apple juice, we take the value added part, which is $3. So when these two add it up, it becomes $5. Okay, it becomes $5, which is correct, which is the same as what we have calculated just now, 5 and 5. Okay, so you see, if you take the value of the final outputs, at the end you get what? $5. Same thing if you take this one, if you use the second method, which is you look into the value added part. If if you look into the value added at the end, you will get $5 as well. Okay, so that is the right way. You cannot go and straight add up 2 plus 5, that's wrong because of double counting. Okay, so we need to avoid this double counting here. We do want the cost of apple to be calculated twice. So remember, the double counting here means the cost of apple had been calculated or added twice. So therefore, there is double counting earlier. Okay. All right. So therefore, these are the 3 approach. Okay, let's have a look into questions. Okay, let's have a look into questions. Okay, question 1 first. The purchase of a new car. New car purchase means what? Consumption. Okay, means consumption. So consumption is under which one? Expenditure. Okay, when you calculate the GDP using expenditure approach, this is under consumption. Okay, so therefore, yes, it is being included in the GDP because the question here is asking whether the following will be included in the calculation of the GDP. So yes. Okay, yes. Second one, payment of social security benefits to retirees. Social security benefits is like what? Payment by the government without any goods and services in return. So therefore, this is what we say as transfer payment. So transfer payments are the money being paid by the government to the people who are in need, but there's not any goods and services in return. So this is not being included. Okay, because all these payments made without any goods and services in return. Okay, so it does not contribute directly to the economic output. Okay, now next one. A company sells its existing inventory of goods to another business. The keyword here, selling existing inventory, something that you had already produced. Now you only sell it off. You only exchange the transfer of you only exchange the ownership of the inventory. You only transfer the ownership of the inventory. It's not something new being created because it's existing. So therefore, it is not being included as well. Remember, only the production of new goods and services. If let's say I say new inventory, then yes, it's being included. But this one is existing inventory, so it's not included. Okay, only new inventory contributes to GDP, then only we include in the GDP itself, not about the transfer of the existing goods, okay, between companies. Okay, so remember, these goods were already counted in GDP when they were originally produced. Okay, so therefore, this one is only selling off, so it's not being included. Okay, next one, income earned by a citizen working abroad. So you work abroad, you earn income. Will that be included in GDP? Now, it will be recorded, but it's not under GDP. So it is not under GDP, but we call it under net factor income abroad. Because later on, we will use it to calculate GNP. Okay, GNP means what? Gross National Product. Okay, so it is not being included in GDP, but it's being included in GNP that we are going to learn how to calculate later on. Because it makes much more sense. Because when you look into GDPs, right, you only look into what is being produced domestically. So it does not take into account of the income that's being earned abroad. So therefore, this is why we want to use GNP. At least you take into account of the income abroad. So therefore, the answer is no, because it's not being included in GDP, but it is included in GNP. Okay. Next one, government expenditure on national defense, like military. So this is part of government spending, and therefore you can put this under expenditure approach as well. Okay, expenditure approach is part of the government expenditure. Okay, so yes, it will be included in the GDP itself. Okay, so these are theory questions first before I look into any calculation questions. So same thing for today's tutorial, it will be in your midterms, theories and calculations. Okay, so we are going to look into calculations in a while. Okay, now let's have a look into calculation questions. Okay, before that, now there are some keynotes over here as well. Now, although we say that GDP is a good measurement, but there are some limitations as well. You see, when you look into GDP, right? Let's say now you can calculate the GDP, the value of GDP, with the use of expenditure approach, income approach, and output approach, right? But there are limitations as well. Because at the end of the day, when you look into GDP, we are referring to the value of the outputs, something that you can quantify. And we say that if the country is producing more, having a higher value of total outputs, that means the country is having economic growth, performing better as compared to other country, having better standard of living. Yeah, but the thing is, we cannot generalize it all the time. There could be limitations. There are things that cannot be quantified, and therefore it is not being reflected on GDP. Like for example, the pollution level of the country is not being taken into account. Okay, what type of goods and services they are producing also not being reflected on GDP. Okay, so therefore here we provide some limitations here. First of all, GDP ignores the household production. Like for example, those non-marketed services. For example, let's say your parents, your mom is a housewife. She does house chores for you, or maybe she's doing some housework that's not being recorded in the GDP itself. Because although she contributes her service, she does the house chores, but at the end of the day, these are not being included in the GDP itself. Okay, GDP ignores the undeclared economic activity like black markets. It's not being recorded because they do not pay taxes. They are doing this illegally, so it's undeclared. So it's not being recorded in GDP. GDP ignores the healthcare, like they do not indicate whether how good is the healthcare of the country. They do not indicate the life expectancy of the people. Like life expectancy means the average lifespan of people. When you look into GDP, you do not know all these things, right? You do not know how long a person can live in the country on average. You don't have all this data. Okay, GDP ignores the quality of life, like how the well-being of the people in the country. GDP ignores the environmental quality, like pollution level. Okay, GDP ignores the political freedom and social justice. Like some country may have a very high real GDP, but maybe there's no any freedom. Okay, and also they also ignore the income inequality. Country can have a very high real GDP, like developed country, but they're still poor people. What? So rich are very rich, poor are very poor. So there's a wide gap between the rich and the poor. So all these things are not being reflected on the GDP itself. Okay, now let's have a look into calculation questions. So for this question, you are being given the components, some of the components. They ask you to calculate the GDP using the expenditure methods and income method. Okay, value added no need because this one cannot do value added. Okay, we only do expenditure and income method. Okay, so just like your midterms, you are being given with all this information and you need to calculate. They will specify properly for you whether they want to calculate expenditure or income method. Okay, they will specify whether they want you to calculate using expenditure approach or income approach. Okay, the first thing I want you to do is you understand the components first. First of all, changes in the inventories and valuables. Changes in inventories, like for example, throughout the year, there could be new inventories being created. So yes, it is being recorded in GDP. Not the sale of inventory. If I change it as a sale of inventory, then it's not being included because when you sell off something that's existing, when you sell off existing inventory, it's not being recorded. Here it's about changes in inventory. So maybe throughout the year, there could be some new inventories being created. Okay, now this one I will categorize under I, investment. Okay, put it as I here. Okay, compensation of employees. Compensation of employees is your wages. You write it like this. Exports of goods is X. Government final consumption expenditure is government spending. Okay, gross fixed capital formation. What is that? Gross fixed capital formation, fixed capital, machines, equipment. Okay, so you can put it as I, investment. Gross operating surplus means what? The profits of the business. Remember, we talked about profits of the business just now. Okay. Imports of goods and private final consumption. Consumption from us. Consumption. Taxes less subsidies. What is this? Net indirect tax. Okay, I can show you that it was so easy for you to do now. Let's do expenditure approach first. Expenditure approach. Okay, what is the formula that I taught you just now? C, you add up all the consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. Remember, net exports, you use exports minus imports. Okay, so now you add up. Oh, this one, investment, exports. Export, you need to minus imports. This one, you need to minus imports. Okay, and then add up government spending, add up this investment, and then add up this consumption. Okay, so you can see that I put it here, the workings over here. You can see that this is my consumption, this is my government spending, this is the investment, this is the investment that I categorized into, and this one is exports minus imports. And you get these answers. Yeah, you just basically add up all the components that are related to CIG and X. Okay. Okay, next one. Income approach. Income approach. That's why just now I asked you to write this one, right? This one, just now the formula, this one. These three components, you find out, you add it up, you get the answers. So I also put the notes here, income approach, these three components. In case you forget what it means, I also put the notes over here already. Okay, so very easy. From here, you can see already. Wages plus gross operating surplus plus net indirect taxes. These three, you add it up, you get the answers. 1, 2, 3. You get the answers already. You add it up, you get these answers. Yeah, just a slight difference here. This one, because one is 7 and one is 8, minor discrepancy, that's fine. Okay, so this is the answers. The three components. So depends on which paper that you got. You got two different sets of midterm. So one paper asking for expenditure, one paper asking for income method. Yeah. Okay, so the three components only. So it will be easy for you if when you look into the table, you go and identify which one it belongs to. Okay, now let's continue. So this one is easy. Your expenditure approach, income approach. Now value added we can't do, but I just go through quickly with you. What do we mean by value added approach? Value added approach means I look for the value added. We have the cost of inputs and the price of outputs. We find the difference. Okay, for example, we look into growing oranges. So that's the output, that's the inputs. So this is the value added. You minus off. Okay, like for example, orange juice. Okay, you use this price of output minus cost of inputs, you get this value added. Okay, you find the difference and then add it up. You get the total of the value added. Okay, so that's the value added approach. Okay, this is to avoid what? This is to avoid the double counting. Okay, because double counting will make the GDP misleading. Okay, so that's how the value added works. So for this question, we can't calculate value added, but I have included the notes over here for you to read. So that in case they ask you to give an example to explain value added, And to explain how this avoids the double counting, you can use some examples by your own. Okay, so this one I want you to read. Okay, this one you read only. Okay, it's from your slides also. Okay, now next one, the complicated one. Okay, so now you are going to calculate the GDP figures also. Okay, with more of the components. Okay, so before we look into the questions and the formula, I want you to remember these three things here. These three things. Tips. Okay, these three are the main tips. Okay, today, if I want to calculate from domestic to national, like example, from gross domestic product, I ask you to calculate gross national product, domestic to national. So means what? Domestic means you only look into domestic market. National means what? National means I take into account of income that's earned abroad, right? So I add on net factor income from abroad. Okay, remember, when I want you to convert from domestic to national, you add on the net income earned from abroad. Okay, net income earned from abroad. Okay, so how do we calculate this net income from abroad? Okay, to calculate this net income from abroad, we have one formula here. Let me write it down. Okay, to get this net income from abroad, okay, we use the income earned by residents from abroad minus income earned by foreigners domestically. Okay, so that is the formula for us to calculate the net income from abroad. This one, so you see, when I want to convert from domestic to national, I need to add on this net factor income from abroad. But how do I get this one? I need to use this formula. Okay, net income from abroad. What are the examples then? Okay, so first of all, let's go into this one. Income earned by residents from abroad means what? For example, let's say I'm a Malaysian. Okay, I'm a Malaysian. I open a business in, let's say, UK. Okay, in foreign country. So my companies in UK making money, making profits. So that's what we call as income earned by a resident from abroad. I earn profits from my UK business. Okay, income earned by resident from abroad. Okay, now on the other hand, what do you mean by income earned by foreigners domestically? For example, Singaporeans open a business in Malaysia, okay, and the business is making profits. So that's what it means, as in the Singaporean, okay, is a foreigner, but he's making money domestically. Income earned by foreigners domestically. Another example, let's say now I am Malaysian, I invest in the UK firms. Okay, I invest and I earn dividends. Okay, I earn some dividends over there. So same thing, income earned by residents from abroad. Okay, because I invest in the UK, so I got the money. Okay, same thing, if the Singaporean invests in Malaysian's company and got the dividends, okay, that is what we call as income earned by foreigners domestically. Okay, because he got the money from our country here, from our country's companies. Okay, so that's what we call as this one, income earned by foreigners domestically. Okay, now moving on to the next one. If I change from market price to factor cost, market price means based on the prices in the market right now. Okay, if I convert market price to factor cost, Means what? Because when we look into the market price currently in the market, it is usually included the taxes and subsidies, right? Market price so includes all this already. So now I want to find back the factor cost. I want to go back the factor cost. Then I remove the taxes and subsidies. Okay, so therefore we need to subtract the net indirect tax. And how do we get net indirect tax? We use indirect tax minus subsidies. Okay. Now, if I ask you to convert from gross to net, from gross to net, then what should I do? From gross to net, I need to minus off expenses, minus off depreciation expenses. Okay, you remember these three things. Later, it will be easier for you. Okay, so these three are the tips. Okay, now let's have a look into the formula. Okay, now let's have a look at the formula. Okay, now first of all, what we have been doing just now, using the income approach, expenditure approach, or output approach, right? We get this GDP at market price. GDP at market price. What we have been doing just now, we all got this GDP at market price. Okay. Now, let's say I want you to convert already. I want you to convert, let's say, for example, into this one, GDP at factor cost. GDP at factor cost. So how? Okay, GDP at factor cost. Okay, so from market price to factor cost, what we minus? We minus the net indirect tax. So we just minus the net indirect tax. Okay, can you understand, right? Because now you understand already, from market price to factor cost. You just minus the net indirect tax. Okay, now if I want you to convert into gross national product at market price, let's say from GDP, I want you to convert into gross national product at market price. So what's the difference? From domestic into national, right? From domestic to national. So means what? I add on net factor income from abroad. Okay. If I ask you to convert into net national product at factor cost, how? I want you to remember one thing. Write it down. You will have one question in a midterm like this. If I ask you net national product, NNP, that basically means national income. In midterm, they will just use the word national income. Then you might be wondering, which one, which formula they're referring to? Remember, national income refers to net national product. Okay. Now here they want you to convert from the just now we calculate this gross national product, right? Just now we got this gross national product at market price. Now they want you to convert into net national product at factor cost. Okay, at factor cost. So that means you need to calculate the national income at factor cost. Now in exam, in midterm, don't worry, they will specify for you whether they want factor cost or market price. Okay, they will specify for you in your midterm. So you must read properly. Okay, that's why I say chapter 2 calculations may be harder to score as compared to the last week chapter. Okay, so how? So you want to change from gross to net. What you should do? You minus off the depreciation first. Okay, you want to change from market price to factor cost, then you minus the net indirect tax. You realize that things get easier when you understand the 3 tips just now. Yeah. So remember, when the midterm asks you national income, I'm actually asking you for what? For net national product. Okay. So you must see if a question does not specify factor cost, it's just a market price, then you just minus depreciation only one. Yeah, so see properly what they ask for in midterm. Okay, now next one, personal income. Okay, personal income, what's the formula? Okay, now you got the national income ready, right? So this one is for you to calculate the net national product, or we call it as national income. Now I want to calculate personal income. So how? So I need to add on the income received but not earned, and minus off income earned but not received. Let's write it down. Okay. So to calculate personal income, I use the net income. I use the national income just now. The national income. I use the national income, or we call it as net national product just now. Okay, minus of income received. Sorry, plus income received but not earned. Okay, plus income that you receive but not earned. Okay, and minus of income earned but not received. Okay, income earned but not received. Okay, now I want you to think of example. Okay, for personal income, this is the formula. Okay, we use the national income plus income received but not earned minus income earned but not received. I want you to think of example for this two. Okay, income received but not earned. That means that you receive the income already, but you have not contributed your service yet. Okay, so you see, national income plus income received but not earned means what? Means I received the money first, but I haven't contributed your service yet. Can you think of an example? Okay, think yourself as a business provider, service provider. You receive the money first, but you haven't provide your service. Like what? School fees. Okay, you pay first, then only they contribute the service. Rental, you pay rental in the beginning of the month. You pay first, then only they offer you the vacant place, right? So you can think about rental, subscription fees, Netflix, right? You pay first, you pay for all these subscription first, then only they provide you the service. Okay, so they receive the income first. Okay, then only they provide you the service. Okay, income received but not earned. Okay, what else? Now I want you to think about transfer payment as well. Okay, you think about the transfer payments or welfare payment as well. I also specify here as well. Okay, think about the welfare payments. Okay, think about the transfer payments or the welfare payments. Like what? Like for example, government give you money, unemployment benefits. Okay, social security benefits. Okay, all sorts of financial assistance. The government give you money. Do you provide any service? No, ma. Okay, so we call it as income received but not earned. I'm unemployed, so I go and claim money from the government. I get the money, but I do not provide my service. What? Income received but not earned. Okay. What about income earned but not received? You should earn the income, but you haven't received the money. Means what? People owe you money. Example, let's say I provide tuition service. Okay, I charge money, okay, I charge payment. I teach the student already, but the student's parent hasn't paid me yet. Income earned but not received. So we call it accrue payment. You see the word accrue. Accrue payment means what? People owe you money. Let's say you are a supplier. You sell things on credit to the customers. You sell things on credit. You sell things ready, you provide your service ready, but money not coming yet. Income earned but not received. You see the word accrue, you know this one already. I give you another example. Let's say you invest in a company. Okay, you invest in a company. Let's say, for example, company ABC. Okay, company ABC say that, okay, by this month we will give dividends to the shareholders. This is also under this one. They say they will give you dividends. Okay, that means that you earn this income already, but have you received yet? No, you only receive by end of the month. So this is what I call as accrue dividends. They declare first. Usually dividends they will declare in the beginning of the year, in the beginning of the month. Then after that only they will release the money. So income earned but not received. They owe you first. Okay, you haven't received yet. Okay, accrue. Okay, so now go back here. Okay, then after that, if you want to calculate personal disposable income, you just minus the personal income tax. Okay, now let's have a look into calculation questions. Okay, net income from abroad, this amount. Consumption of fixed capital, that means what? The usage of machines and equipment. I want you to remember, when you talk about usage of fixed capital, it links to depreciation because all these things will depreciate. You can write depreciation over there. Okay? Taxes less subsidies means what? Means net indirect tax. Okay? Social security benefits and unemployment benefits. What is this? Transfer payments. Good. So this is what I call as income received but not earned. Okay, this one that we say just now, income received but not earned. Okay, income received but not earned. Okay, accrue dividends. The company owe you dividends. So income earned but not received. Okay. Now the first one they ask you to calculate national income. Remember, national income means what? Net national product affected cost. Okay. So the first one, when they ask you to calculate national income, means we calculate the net national product. Okay, here they want factor cost. Okay, they want factor cost. So how? So we use the formula just now. Okay, gross national product at market price minus depreciation because you want to calculate the net, and then minus net indirect tax. But the question is, how do we calculate this one? Gross national product. You see in the question, we have a sub question. Okay, how do we calculate GNP? We use GDP plus net factor income abroad. Okay, we need to add on this one. So we use GDP plus net factor income abroad. Okay, minus depreciation minus net indirect tax. So I can put that in, no? So GDP is how much just now? GDP is here because we use the data from the above as specified in the question using the above GDP figures. Okay, so this amount, okay, this amount is the GDP and market price plus net factor income abroad, this one. Okay, minus of, so this one, minus of depreciation is this one, and minus any net indirect tax. Net indirect tax is this one. Okay, so at the end you get these answers. Okay, so you are just using formula. Okay, now next one, calculate personal income. So just use the formula. You use the national income just now, plus the receive but not earn, minus the earn but not receive. Okay, so means what? You use the value just now, plus this 200 and 300, because these are the income received but not earned, and then minus of the accrued dividends. Okay, minus of the accrued dividends, and you get the answers. Okay, so you just use this one and this one. Okay, can all right, now moving on to the next part, which is to understand the circular flow of income. Okay, so this one here, I want you to understand circular flow of income. Okay, so what's the difference between 2, 3, and 4 sectors? Let's have a look into 2 sectors. 2 sector means that it's a closed economy. So it's a closed economy without the government intervention and trade. So that means that no government spending, no government intervention, and no trade. There's no government and no trade. So let's have a look into this example here. Okay, you only have households and firms. Okay, so household can contribute their factor services to the firms for the firms to produce goods and services. Okay, so what happens is firms will give money, will give rewards, will give factor rewards, will give factor payments to the household, and therefore household can spend on the goods and services. Okay, so you can think about like this one. So that means that household provides factor services, so therefore they earn income, they earn factor payments. Okay, so once they got money, they can spend. They can spend on goods and services because firms produce all these goods and services to them. Okay. Meanwhile, there's also financial markets in between. That means that household and firms can save money in banks or also take loans from banks. So financial markets here means banks. Okay. Now moving on to the 3 sector. 3 sector means what? 3 sector is still a closed economy. But here now you have government, but there's no trade. There remains no trade. So therefore it's still a closed economy. So now you have government, the role of governments over here. So same thing, you have household, you have firms, and you have government here. So all these 3 parties, we still can borrow money and save money in banks. So you have a financial markets over here, which is the banks. Okay. But now what's difference here is household and firms will pay the tax payments to the government. We pay taxes. Okay, we pay taxes. So when we pay taxes, these are the money that's not being spent in the economy. We pay to government, right? Okay, like just now, 2 sector. For 2 sector, right? Okay, we spend on goods and services, but whatever that's not spent, we will save in the banks, right? So savings here are the money that's not being spent in the economy. Okay, here same thing. Yeah, savings are the money that's not being spent in the economy. At the same time, tax payments are also the money not being spent in the economy. Okay, now after that, government can give transfer payments to the household, to those who are in need, to those who are unemployed. At the same time, government can give subsidy to firms as well to reduce costs and increase output. Okay, and at the same time, government can provide factor payments to household as well, because household can work in the government agency ma. So if household works in government agency, they can get factor payments, and government can buy goods and services from firms as well. Okay. But what's different here is you can see there's tax payment. Okay, there's tax payment. Okay, now moving on to the 4 sector. 4 sector means what? 4 sector means it's an open economy. That means you have everything you have the roles of government and also trade. So yes, with government and with trade. Okay, so you can see you have foreign sector over here. So you have more parties now: household, firms, government, and foreign sectors. Same thing. Okay, we have banks as usual here, in which household, firms, and government can save their money in banks. So these are the money not being spent. And also we have to pay taxes. These are the money not being spent in the economy as well. Now we have foreign sector. Okay, so household can buy imports. When we buy imports, means these are the money not being spent in the economy. Okay, and foreigners can buy the exports. Okay, from our country. Okay, same thing. Firms can buy imports as well. Firms can buy imports as well. Okay, so whenever we talk about imports, means these are the leakage, the money not being spent in the economy. Okay, now foreign sector may also give some transfer payments like foreign aids to the country. Okay, and if household work abroad, they will be paid with factor services as well. Okay, now from all these three diagrams, I want you to know what are the injection and leakage. Okay, so this one I want you to write down. Important theory question in midterm. Okay, injection and withdrawal. When I say withdrawal, means leakage. It's the same thing. Okay. Investment, government spending, and exports are injections. Okay. Saving, taxes, and imports are leakage. If you want to see a clearer picture, you can see this one. That's simplified one. You have banks, you have government, and foreign country abroad. So you can see saving, taxes, and imports are what we call as withdrawal. When banks invest in the firms, government spend in the economy, and foreigners buy our exports, that's called injection. Okay, using the color. Okay, so therefore you can see that these three here, saving, tax, and imports are withdrawal. Okay, so I can put it like this. Okay, now what do you mean by injection and withdrawal? Injection means what? Means addition to circular income. That means what? That means money injected. Okay, money injected. Okay, through the economy. Okay, money injected through the economy for spending on goods and services. Okay, addition through the circular income. Okay, you can think about money coming in, money flow in. You can think about money flow in. Okay, addition to circular income. So these are the examples. Just now what we talk about, all this are example. Are example. Okay. Now, when you look into withdrawal, withdrawal means what? Leakage, means outflow of money. Okay, so withdrawal means the reduction. Okay, so you can say withdrawal means reduction from circular income. Means what? Means money flows out. Okay, money flow out. Means what? Means less money. Okay, less money. Okay, to spend on goods and services in the economy. Okay, money flows out. So remember, one is money flows in, the other one is money flows out. So when money flows out, so there will be less money, okay, to spend in the domestic economy. So which may slow down the country economic growth. So theory question they may ask you, explain injection and withdrawal. Okay, they may ask you to explain the role of injection and withdrawal. So you can use this one, the definition, the meaning itself, and the example. Or they can ask you the role of imports and exports in the economy. So like for example, if I ask you exports mean what? Exports means injection because money injected to the economy, money flows in. If imports mean what? It's a withdrawal. That means that money flows out. Money flows out as in what? Less money to spend in the economy. That means that it may result in economic growth. It may slow down the economic growth. Yeah, it may slow down the economic growth. This is for theories. I want you to take note of this one. Move up.
Government final consumption expenditure.
W what? W what?
Government final consumption expenditure in one question. The first question.
Government final
The first calculation.
first calculation question.
That one is what? Just now you say what fixed one.
Government final government expenditure. Government expenditure.
那你有讲一个什么什么 fixed 什么的？
这个consumption of fixed capitals
对。
那个 link to depreciation。呀，在下面的不是那一题吧？
下面有一个 depreciation。
哦，你是讲这个 gross fixed capital formation. Fixed capital means machinery and equipment, so it relates to investment.
Is that fixed? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now moving on to the next question. True or false? Okay, theory question. Okay. In the circular flow of income, households are the only source of saving. Is it correct? No, because why? Because you have the firms that can save as well. You have government that can save as well. So firms and government can also contribute to saving. So the answer is false. Okay. Next question. In a closed economy, okay, imports and exports are treated as leakage and injection respectively. Closed economy has no trade. If there's no trade, there will be no imports and no exports. Okay, so no trade means there'll be no exports and imports. Okay, so therefore it is false. Okay, it should be open economy, because if it's closed economy, then it does not interact with foreign sector. But if I change the question to open economy, then it's correct, because imports is leakage, exports is injection. The behind part is correct if it's an open economy. But since now the question is asking for closed economy, then it is wrong. Okay, so it's false. Okay. Now for today's class, the things that you need to know are mainly formula. So I think she will upload extra question for you to try it out on 9 times. Your module leader, you can try out whenever you have time, okay, to try out different questions with the use of the formula. Here I provide you a mini one, okay. This one is just a short questions here. Usually in midterm, they will specify very well. Okay, they give you a table here. Let's say the first question, compute GDP. Let's say I will specify GDP with the use of income approach. Okay, with the use of income approach. So you only take the components of income approach. Okay, let's do this one quick one. Income approach, what is the formula again? We just learned the compensation of employees plus the gross operating surplus plus net indirect tax. Yeah, so you just calculate lah. So we just use the compensation of employees. Let me write here. Plus gross operating surplus plus net indirect taxes. Okay, so let's find the value. Okay, wages and salary, 700 plus in million, so in million, remember in million. Okay, and then gross operating surplus includes rental as well. Rental, dividends, interest is under gross operating surplus as well. Yeah, remember we talked about that just now as well. Here you can see the explanation here. Okay, so 300. Okay, profit also. Okay, profit also. Transfer payment, no. Corporate tax, no. Depreciation, no. Private investment, no. Personal income tax, no. Employees provident funds, no. This one also no. So this one you don't have net indirect tax, so plus 0 plus 0. Okay, so you get the answer, which is 1,400. Okay, 1,400 million. Okay, million. Okay, then after that, they ask you to calculate GNP. Now, of course, they will specify at what. So this one for easy, I just say at market price lah. This one just say gross national product at market price. Okay, at market price. Okay, in midterm they will specify for you. Okay, you calculate lor. Okay, how to convert from this GDP? This is GDP. GDP at market price. Okay, now you want to convert into GNP at market price. How? You use back the formula. Okay, means that you add on the net factor income abroad lah. Basically, to calculate from domestic to national, you add up the net factor income abroad. Okay, you add up the net factor income abroad. Okay, next question. Calculate national income. Again, let's say I give you a question. At factor cost, I want you to try at factor cost. At factor cost. So how? So from GNP, you convert into national income. National income means net national product and at factor cost. So how? So here, from the gross, from gross to net, you need to minus off depreciation. Okay, minus off depreciation. Okay, and then from market price to factor cost, you minus net indirect tax, but here don't have, so no need lah. Okay, so at the end you get these answers. Try and do this one, your homework. Okay, so at least you have an idea about what will be coming out as a calculation questions for your midterms. So these are things that we need to know for your tutorial 2. Okay, so for midterms and next week also for midterm and assignment. Yeah, so we start moving into the contents that will link to assignments already. I hope with the 3 tips, right? Okay, it is your revision for your formulas, because formulas not being provided. It's not finance. We got formulas on. So you must remember manually. Okay. So in exam, in midterm, you do not know which value to take, you write formula for me lah. I give you marks for formula, 0.5 marks lah. Hey, but final, yes, finals, if you do not know how to calculate, you write the formulas there. For me to give you 1 mark lah in your finals. Yeah, if finals also got calculation questions, but not this one. Okay, so yes, if you in midterms, you really don't know how to do. You see the table, you don't know which value to take, but you remember formulas only. You write formula there, lor. I give you 1 mark lah. Okay. All right. Let's stop sharing and stop recording.